So what you're about to see is one of the most incredible, most audacious logistical moves in modern history. We're talking about Saudi Arabia trying to physically reroute its entire energy economy, and with it, a massive chunk of the world's oil supply. This is the story of how they're doing it, and, why it might just create a crisis even bigger than the one it's trying to fix. Let's just play a little game of what if for a second. What if the tap, the main valve that supplies almost 20% of the entire planet's oil, just got shut off? Not a slow trickle, but boom, instantly. What do you think happens next? Well, let's jump forward to March 2026, because in this scenario, that's not a theory anymore. It's a full-blown catastrophe, and it sets off this crazy chain of events that completely redraws the global energy map, almost overnight. Okay, so where does it all kick off? The Hormuz crisis. We're talking about the most volatile, most critical waterway on Earth. For decades, everyone's been saying, what if it shuts down? Well, in our story, the what if is over. It's happening. So some regional conflict flares up and boom, the Strait of Hormuz is paralyzed. Naval mines, drone strikes, the whole thing is shut down. We're talking 17 million barrels of oil a day just gone, cut off from the world. Now that's not just a little disruption, that is a global economic shockwave. And while every other nation is just watching their tankers sit there helpless, Saudi Arabia pulls out its secret weapon, a plan that's been sitting on a shelf for 45 years. Yeah, a back door. A way out that most of the world doesn't even know exists. A dusty old contingency plan that, in a flash, has become the single most important piece of infrastructure on the entire planet. It's called the Yanbu Passage. And you gotta understand, this thing isn't just a pipe. No way. It's a high-pressure, industrial artery. It's a system designed to literally pick up the exit door of the entire Saudi economy from the Persian Gulf and move it clear across the desert to the Red Sea. I mean, the sheer scale of this thing is it's staggering. We're talking about 2 massive pipelines buried under all that sand. And since crude oil is super thick, super heavy, it can't just flow on its own. So you've got these 11 massive pumping stations. And when I say massive, I mean they look like industrial fortresses that literally shove the oil across the entire width of the Arabian Peninsula. So with Hormuz shut down, Aramco cranks this thing all the way up. I mean, they push it to its absolute mechanical limit. They are now forcing 7 million barrels of oil a day through this desert lifeline. 7 million barrels. It's a number so big, it's almost meaningless, right? So let's try this. Think of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Now imagine filling up over 4,000 of them. That's how much oil is flowing under the sand every single day. It's just a mind-boggling feat of engineering. But, and this is a big but, it's not a perfect solution. Because you see, solving one absolutely massive problem has just created a completely different one on the complete other side of the country. And this is where a hidden flaw in the master plan shows up, the port pipeline gap. The thing is, just because you can get all that oil to the coast, that doesn't mean you can get it off the coast and onto ships at the same speed. And when you look at the numbers, you see the problem right away. The pipeline, it can move 7 million barrels a day, no problem. But the port of Yanbu, after you take out what's needed for local refineries, can only actually load about 4.5 million of that onto tankers. And that huge difference, well, it creates a massive logistical traffic jam. So what's the result? Well, Yanbu has basically become a floating city of oil. You look at satellite images and it's just a jam. More than 24 very large crude carriers, we're talking the skyscrapers of the sea here, all just anchored offshore, waiting and waiting for their turn to load up. But where this traffic jam is happening, that's the real story. Because this is a key rule in global trade. You don't eliminate risk, you just move it somewhere else. By cleverly bypassing the Strait of Hormuz, Saudi Arabia has basically funneled its entire economic survival directly into another trap. Yeah, welcome to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This is the choke point that connects the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. And its name, well, it ominously translates to the Gate of Tears. And right now, it's turning into a place just as dangerous as the one they just escaped. The threat has changed, for sure, but the danger is just as real. See, in Hormuz, you're worried about a big naval conflict. Here, the tankers coming out of Yanbu are facing something different. These are attacks from groups like the Houthi forces in Yemen, using drones, missiles, fast little speedboats. It's unpredictable in a region that's already incredibly unstable. And here's the critical weakness of this new route. Those huge tankers, the VLCCs, when they're fully loaded with oil, they're just too big to go north through the Suez Canal. So they have no choice. They have to go south. That means something like 75% of all the oil coming out of the Yanbu Passage is now totally dependent on getting safely through the Gate of Tears. So what happens if this new choke point gets shut down too? Well, The answer literally redraws the energy map of the entire world. The only other option is the long way around Africa. And think about what that means. A single tanker has to add almost 6,000 miles to its trip. That's an extra 10 to 15 days at sea. We're talking millions of dollars in extra cost for every single ship. And you can bet that cost gets passed on, rippling through the entire global economy. And this is where we see the really big picture. The Yanbu Passage, it isn't just a reaction to a crisis. Oh no, it's a core piece of Saudi Arabia's huge long-term plan, their Vision 2030. This is all about fundamentally shifting the kingdom's entire center of gravity, redesigning its economy to become a dominant Red Sea power, not just a Gulf-dependent one. But in the end, the Yanbu Passage, for all its engineering brilliance, can't change geography. And it proves this fundamental truth about our interconnected world. There are no truly safe routes. There are only different risks. When one choke point breaks, the whole world is forced to scramble and redraw the map, which leaves us with one big question. Where's the next choke point going to be?